So the VHS anthology series continues, and this is the most recent installment from 2023.
VHS 85.
I did review VHS 99 a while back, back when I still didn't really know what I was doing. I still don't, but I've gotten, I don't know, maybe a little better. So if you don't know much about the VHS series, it's a found footage horror anthology series created by Brad Miska. It's been fairly successful, actually, and this is the sixth installment with another on the way. And as I said, I'm a fan, but they've all been pretty, hit and miss for me. And the quality kind of dips more with every release, though they sometimes will bounce back a little bit. But that said, I still find them fun to watch, and I'm always looking forward to seeing what each individual director can bring to the table. Now, the 80s is my favorite decade, and I have a lot of nostalgia for it. But this is arguably the worst installment so far, in my opinion. VHS Viral from back in, I think it was like 2014, was my least favorite, but it still had some good stuff on it. I might actually like it better than this one. That said, there is some good stuff here as usual. Now, every VHS film has a wraparound segment that you see at the beginning, the end, and in between the individual segments. And oddly enough, I really like the wraparound here. It's made to look like a VHS tape recording of a scientific research project, I guess like a documentary. And the wraparound is titled Total Copy, and it's directed by David Bruckner. It's about a shape-shifting alien called Rory. That was found and brought to a university to be studied. I've actually seen most of Bruckner's work so far. He actually directed a segment from the first VHS film, if I remember correctly, and it's a cool one. I've also seen his 3 feature-length films. The Ritual from 2017, I think it's a Netflix original. It's pretty cool. The Night House from 2020, which I own, it had some promise, but was just kind of decent for me. Same with his 2022 Hellraiser reboot. It was cool seeing a back to basics Hellraiser film, but it didn't do a ton for me. But yeah, I dig his wraparound, Bruckner's wraparound. I thought it was really, really cool. Would have made a cool feature length film. So anyways, before I talk about the individual segments, I'll talk about the aesthetics and look of this film. Since it takes place in 1985, it's supposed to look like old camcorder footage, for the most part. So it's very grainy, and I do have a lot of nostalgia for that look. And it's kind of charming at first, but it gets kind of old after a while, I think. I imagine it's a digital filter since, I doubt actual film was in the budget, but I could be wrong. So the first segment here is called No Wake. Directed by Mike P. Nelson, who also directed the 2021 Wrong Turn reboot. I haven't seen that yet, but I've been meaning to for a while. And this is one of my favorite segments here, and it was a good way to kick it off, You see a group of friends headed out to the woods to, do some camping and water skiing. Very 1980s, or at least 1980s movie style. So after being in the boat for a while, they hear gunshots and bullets just start flying, whizzing past their heads, and eventually they start, the friends start getting hit with the bullets. It's pretty intense. My first thought was that it was going to be like a Jason, Crystal Lake type thing, or like a murderous redneck. Things get pretty brutal, really. It's pretty bloody and gory. And there's a twist that I thought was fairly clever, but I don't know, mostly good for the gore. The story itself is, it's kind of cool. Like I said, the twist is, I didn't really see it coming. Kind of cool. I enjoyed this one okay. The second segment is called God of Death, directed by Gigi Saul Guerrero. I'm only vaguely familiar with her, and she's directed quite a bit, actually, since her first short back in 2011. She's definitely stayed busy if you look at her filmography. Unfortunately, this is probably my least favorite segment here. It begins with some news reporters in Mexico doing their thing live when suddenly a disaster strikes. Buildings start crumbling and collapsing, and it looks to be like an earthquake maybe, causing the news crew to be trapped in a slowly kind of crumbling building. This goes on for a pretty good while, and I actually thought it was going to be like a natural disaster segment, which, would be unusual for the VHS series, but hey, you can always, they're always doing new stuff, so who knows. It kind of is, but it takes a turn into like pre-Hispanic mythology, which sounds way cooler than what it actually turns into. And I said that this was my least favorite segment here, but it might actually be my least favorite segment of the entire VHS series. I just didn't think it was good at all. The third segment, titled TKNOGD, or Techno God, I guess, I'm not sure what's going on there, was directed by Natasha Kermani, I think her name is, who I was also not familiar with at all. And I was not a big fan of this one either. I found it cheesy, which it was kind of supposed to be, but it just, in my opinion, it just didn't work. Didn't work at all for, what it, I see what it was going for, and it didn't get there, in my opinion. So the main character seems to be like some new age performance artist, trying to warn the crowd of some god of technology type being. It's very Tron-esque. I was never a big fan of Tron to begin with. I kind of hated it, actually. So this had some decent gore, but it was for the most part it was a miss for me. Segment 4 is called Ambrosia, directed by Mike P. Nelson again, same director who directed the first segment, and it's interesting because it's a follow-up to his segment in the beginning. And I'd have to check, but I'm not sure if that's ever been done in a VHS film, so that's kind of cool. That said, this segment was just okay for me. I liked the concept of continuing a previous segment, and it does explain the shooter from that first segment. It's overall it's not as good as the first one, but I guess if you put it all together and just pretend that it's one segment, it's pretty solid. And the fifth and final segment, titled Dreamkill, was directed by Scott Derrickson. Definitely the most well-known filmmaker here, by far, I would say. And here, man, he just shows us exactly why that is. The first minute here, I think, outshines the rest of this movie. It is stylish, it's very gritty, and ultra-violent. Way more than I expected, even. It also has the best story of the bunch here, which also doesn't say a lot, but it's a good story. The beginning shows an unknown person breaking into a woman's house and murders her, and it's quite brutal. The grittiness of the way this scene is filmed, along with the lack of natural light, gives it a very cool look, almost dreamlike, or really, nightmare-like. And the detective that investigates the crime scene is confused because recently, I think like days before this happened, someone anonymously sent him a videotape of the exact same murder. This would have also made a pretty cool feature-length film, but it works just fine as a short. And man, Scott Derrickson just kicks everyone's asses here. It's almost not even fair. And then after that, you get the final, what would you call it? The final part of the wraparound. And like I said already once or twice, I really liked this wraparound. And I would have totally been cool with it being a feature-length film. I think it would have totally stood on its own. But anyways, overall, I was bored and unimpressed with over half of this movie. I'm still on board for the next VHS installment, but, most of this one just didn't work for me. And I'm actually kind of surprised that it was rated as high as it was. I'm giving VHS 85 a 5.5 out of 10, and that's mostly off the strength of the wraparound and Scott Derrickson's awesome segment. If it weren't for all that, I don't think I would have given this thing more than a 4.5 or a 5 at most. So anyways, what did you guys think? Have you seen this? Let me know what segments you liked, which ones were your favorites, and while you're at it, let me know which VHS films you like the most, because I'm a fan of this series. I think it's cool. I love anthologies, and like I said, I'm going to continue to watch the VHS stuff as it comes out, unless it just totally goes to shit, but whatever, we'll see. There's plenty of other stuff to watch if it does. Cheers, guys.